But I'm not sure how I'm gonna do that yet, because balloons are gonna wanna go this, the string's gonna interfere with it. You can't just tie a string of balloons together, they'll all be leaning or something.
You just need one big balloon at the top, and then it's a string straight down.
Cord down from the ceiling, you can get up there.
Yeah, well, see.
It's
Well,
very,
that depends on the venue.
yeah,
What they'll let you do.
Yeah, what they'll let you
Put a cord
do.
down from the ceiling, that's
Exactly.
no problem.
you have to wait and know
Yeah.
what the venue is, but I still
Yeah.
think you need to know the content as well, because I think the content can influence you. If you tie into somebody and say, this is exactly the way it happens, you're really creating a pretty tight box for them. Are you sure it's necessary to create that tight box for them at this stage?
This is the way it happens, what do you mean? Oh, like what I'm talking about here?
Yeah.
If
mean,
you
what if
can
there
come up
was
with a better idea that's
Well,
easier,
No, I
great.
just meant, why not be led by what comes out of the content a little bit? Just,
Well, this is
Having
a
the audience
grid.
define the axes, is that what
Pardon
you're
me?
talking about? Having the audience define the axes?
it could be the audience defines the axes, it could be a movable axis that's,
No, I can see Kaz saying no.
Yeah, John and I are both going, you guys are missing the point.
yeah, I
We've
know.
already established an axis in the system. Now.
Well, yeah, but you're not tied to balloons, right?
No, but.
No, but we are tied to a three-dimensional.
Yeah, but is there any
Dimensional.
reason why that axis couldn't be made up of something that could
It
move?
could be
from place
rope
to
lights,
place?
it could be
Yeah.
Yeah.
strings of lights,
Exactly.
it could
Something that's
be,
feasible.
Yeah.
yeah.
It's economically feasible.
Yeah,
That's what
it
we're
just
looking
needs to be economically feasible, and it could be movable.
We talked about lasers.
Yeah, we came up with balloons just because
Well,
Yeah.
it seems
It seems easy to
inexpensive
do.
Yeah.
and easy to do.
Yeah.
Conceivably, you could suspend it for balloons and have the thing
Right.
outside in an open space. I mean,
Well, that would be
so-
difficult
it'd be difficult.
outside.
Be- because of the wind.
The wind and stuff, yeah, unless you're, you can do it in the atrium of a local office building, maybe.
That's true.
But I think we're better off trying to do it
Well, we need a stage.
on a stage and auditorium.
You know, another thing I
Seating
wanted
and
to point
everything.
out,
Well, it seems that everything is sort of driven by how we actualize this grid. There's a basic need to establish what the grid is, and we can't establish the grid until we establish the venue. But what we could do is come up like we have been just now with several different ways to actualize the grid. And just put those in a, actualizing the grid, or,
Okay, so so far we've got balloons, and we've
Laser.
got laser,
String lights.
and we've got string lights, and somebody said people.
that was you.
No, you said it.
Oh,
I'm sorry. Humans.
I don't see how people are going to.
Well, we're just noting down the idea at this point, right?
you know, another point I wanted to make is that pretty early on, we weren't only talking about plays, we were talking about all kinds of works of art.
Mm-hmm,
We could have a painting, a piece of music, a
Exactly.
performance,
yeah.
lots of different things.
And I was reading
It's not-
for it in those tableaus. and
Right,
stuff.
so
We
then
call
it-
them nano plays, but that's kind of a catch-all.
Yeah, it could be
All these
anything.
different
And that's where we
things.
come down, to the third big circle here,
Yeah.
which is content.
Yeah.
Because the content the outline of the content is what's gonna drive the writers, and I think you need to give the writers not only subject matter, but like you just said, some possibilities, that, during this explanation or this sketch or how this is doing, a big part of it could be a sculptural object, or a big part of it could be music, or a big part of it could,
Yeah.
I think they need to have some ideas because they're just writers. They're not going to be able to fill in all those ideas, and that's going to depend on what other people you pull in
Right.
to work on it.
Sure.
So, I'm going to make
Well-
a circle called content now.
Part of what I'm saying is that we're calling
All
them
right,
writers,
yeah,
but
I've
that
got
could
that
also
down
be
here.
sculptors,
Yeah.
composers,
Right.
painters, whatever.
So let's
Birds
back
flapping
that
in the
out
breeze.
and say, I don't want to say, creators?
No, creative content, I don't know.
Mm.
Because, I was thinking, that we can incorporate Elijah Newbottom's stuff as one element of this.
But it isn't, his is a medium. He needs a subject matter for his medium. That's the weakness of his project, it was just a medium, so.
Well, he's an abstract painter, as is Gerald.
Yeah,
So-
but they have, even an abstract painter has to be presented with something to be abstract about, right? Otherwise, you're a color field painter, or you're a decorative painter, or, I mean, an abstract
You
painter
could-
is abstracting from something, okay?
You could map, you can map anything. You could map one of those paintings.
Yeah,
That isn't a problem.
no.
I mean, you may just determine that the paintings aren't very strong.
Or that the whole process of, because these are dynamics, you probably come out with probably what looks like more or less a blank sheet of paper. Then we'd spray it and the picture would appear. And we'd do another one and a different set of things might appear. And things like that. So part of it is the
It's
dynamic aspects of it, that it appears in real time.
Right.
And it's
right, yeah.
entertaining.
I was just gonna say that.
It's entertaining.
Because
So
it could be figurative, because obviously you're producing a pattern, so it could be figurative, it could be completely abstract.
Should be a performance art piece of
Yeah,
work.
and in fact, we were originally thinking of, actually started writing a little script or a video,
Mhm.
which could be presented as part of it too. So I mean, that's their content. They work that out.
Mhm.
And as long as it's acceptable to the director or the cast, then that's one of the elements of it. And then we evaluate it. So I think, that as far as content's concerned, it's gonna require, we're not gonna get that until we get some writers and some people who can do the.
You're not gonna, but you can't, imagine that you've got the playwright project and they're interested in collaborating.
Okay.
And they sit down at the table and they say, what do you want, what are we writing about, right? Now you have to explain, I realize you have to explain the whole polyaesthetic theory.
Yeah, you really don't. I
Now,
mean,
that's
Yeah.
kind of a new twist.
Yeah, no, you really don't have to explain it, all you have
you
to
don't,
do is.
those people could completely work in isolation and create,
What?
a theatrical event, just pull anything out they want,
No,
whatever they're
no.
interested in.
I can't, again, when I listen to all of your tapes and you use some examples at the very beginning, let's map these examples. And the examples you used were random. They were random examples, there were two or three of them.
Mhm.
And they made for very interesting discussions, but they didn't all tie together as any kind of content.
No.
And that was our caveat for your project, is that you had to tie all this content together to be useful to somebody, so somebody could see the use of it. And we agreed that that would be the differences. I said differences and similarities, but Cass wants it to be the differences between artists and science. That's your content. And that's one of your instructions that you have to give the playwright. Not that they pull anything out and when they put it on the grid, it'll show up that there is this difference. But you actually want that to be part of your content so that you're more or less making sure that the discussion is going to be about something really interesting and not just absolutely out there, confusing.
No,
You know.
yeah, we want something interesting, definitely.
But why,
That
you
is the
mentioned the
gamble.
differences, but not the similarities.
Well, this is the discussion that we had, all right? So, in the,
Similarities don't fall on the grid.
yeah,
For instance, magic. Art has magic, science has magic. Since they both have magic, they don't fit on the grid. They're both, the similar things, we can list and say, yeah, we talked about that, these are similar things. Or I could say, magic is, or let me back up. Here's an example. Universal, the universal, okay? Someone can say, well, scientists are always interested in explaining something that occurs universally. You know, they're not interested in something that happens culturally. They're interested in creating a system that correlates experience the same over and over again. It's universal throughout the, you know, the different systems of looking at it or whatever, different experiences. Artists will say, oh, you know, but that's not just science. Art has universals too. And then we'll say, okay, are those, then art and science are similar in that sense? I don't think so. See, so now there can be debate as well. When two people say, okay, these things are similar, art and science both have this, and it's open for debate.
Right.
And I'll say that art doesn't have universals. The universals that are embedded in artwork are actually scientific ideas, you know, generally social science.
Or neurology,
Pardon?
or neurobiology. I mean, there's some things we can't perceive.
Right, but when you look at the universal in an artistic expression, it's really a polyaesthetic experience, and it's, you have to look at that universal and say, does all art create universals? No, but you could almost say all science does. Now there's going to be philosophers that will come along and say nothing is universal.
Right.
Okay, granted, nothing's universal. You can't, you know. But generally, the science tries anyway
There you go.
to correlate experience universally. Okay, and that is what science does. So that's really a scientific idea. So when you look at art and it has something to do with universals, you have to look at it in terms of science. This isn't really something that's art. It's science in the art. And that's what we're talking about by pulling these things apart. And as we map expressions, we're actually taking down and deconstructing them into the separate component pieces
Yes.
and trying to figure out,
So if we use the word magic then, instead of universal,
right, so it's open to debate. Is magic something that is in both art and science? Or can someone say, oh no, it's really art or it's really science?
I have a really different sense of magic. I mean, I don't know if you're using it metaphorically or you're using it.
Yeah, I'm not clear about what you
Well,
mean.
that's why it opens up to debate, right
I
there.
think that this thing is not, you know, we're really looking at rating particular instances, particular things, not great, gross,
All right, now-
grandiose ideas.
now
We're not mapping that at all. I mean, I don't think you can map science. on
No,
this.
but you know what you can do? What you can do from all your discussions, and maybe with discussions as other groups, is you can say, these are the most interesting questions. These are the questions that are going to be easy enough to explain to an audience in a short amount of time and stimulating to the audience, and will make a stimulating discussion. If we could list maybe 20 of those that we think are really interesting, and then choose 6 of them and say to the writers, or say to them, here are 20, you need to choose one of these 20. But to go to them and say, you can do whatever you want, and it's okay, and we'll map it on the thing, I think that's just not giving this committee enough sort of power over, or the control over how good the presentation is going to be.
Well, see, that is the difficult area for me, is trying to control the quality of all of those skits. You know, I have no idea how to do that.
Well, I think one of the ways you can control them is that if you're going to say, let's not confuse the audience. So how can we hone in on 6 basic concepts that are going to be of interest to most people, that aren't going to be too.
Well, we
to-
we talked about that. We talked
Yeah.
about populating the corners.
Okay, I'm going to get the list because I need to look at the polyaesthetic
By the way,
grid.
I brought these charts here.
I think that's what she's trying to find right now.
6.
Well, that's,
She keeps talking about 6 things. So
Well, those are the ends, those are the ends of the axis.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Presumably are
I
pure.
brought those.
You know,
Thank you.
If anything can really be pure, I mean, presumably.
I need my cheat
Yeah.
sheet, I'm sorry.
But I
Because
think you could explain to the artists, you know, to the people, we did things that are predominantly would fall in this part of the grid. And you can after explain what the axes are and give some examples, and let them figure out how they want to do it.
Yeah, but you need to hone in and you need,
But I
like,
think talking about, you know, universals and magic and this sort of thing, this could confuse them. I mean, I'm thinking of the case of science. Science isn't really a performing art. And,
No, but you can turn it into a performance art piece.
yeah,
I mean,
Well,
that's
you
what
can-
Bernard Benet was all about.
you can do a demonstration or something like that.
Right.
Yeah,
And it may or may not be entertaining.
But
Yes.
that's right, but it also, you know, you already know the answer. I mean, so many of research, I mean, a lot of research is obviously verification. That's why you keep repeating things.
but the audience doesn't know what the answer is.
But most of the time, you
No.
do things because you want to find out something. I don't know the answer to this, but I'm doing an experiment right now.
if you,
I don't
if you
know the
leave
answer.
it random, then, and let the writers choose, they could end up all in one area.
Yeah, no, I think we need to. tell
You
them
know?
Yeah, that's what my fear is. You're all going to land in the middle of
Yeah.
this.
Or in the middle. So we need to generate, you know, suggestions that are gonna be actually
we need to
interesting
kind of,
ideas. I think
kind of
we have to.
create a
No,
seed.
we don't need to say, you know, this needs to happen in any particular medium at this point, but you need to generate the ideas.
Well, yes.
That's why I originally said, you know, that they be assigned a corner. This group is assigned one corner, this group is assigned a different corner. Because it forces them not to fall in the
And-
same place in the grid.
Yeah,
Right,
and
but
let
I
them
would
choose
ra-
which one they want to do. But,
I think it's very, very difficult. I think you found that it's very difficult, because if you don't know this system the way Kaz knows it, inside out, backwards and forwards, you are completely lost
Well,
in what, and so you
that's
come with
true.
something that you think is here, and then Kaz says, no, that's
well,
not
well,
here.
obviously,
Right.
obviously Kaz will have to sit down with each of the potential writers and explain.
Now, these were some of the things I learned when we did these mappings,
Yeah.
is that I'm not communicating what's
Uh-huh.
going on here.
Yeah.
You
It's
know, this
interesting,
grid,
isn't it?
because I'm thinking, oh, I just say this and this and everybody understands what
No,
I'm saying.
they
And
don't.
it's like, no.
But, you
But
know,
then later, like you said, you came back and said, oh, that's what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
yeah. So that's what we have to do. We have to take some of those aha moments, right? That we get as a group and say, aha, if I got that, maybe that's something that we could explain to the audience.
is
too.
that what you mean by suggestions?
Yes,
Okay.
right. It's
Okay.
those aha moments of, oh, I finally get how this works, and that's an example, and that's important that we can, and we could give that then to a writer, explain it however it needs to be explained, or to a group of writers. I'm also thinking, why are we using just the aha moments of this group in understanding this? We could actually, if you wrote if you wrote a good request document, or even questions, you could give them to the other groups and say, you know, what are your aha moments of collaboration, or where you made a breakthrough between artists and scientists, or what was the topic of it, or, you know, and then you could maybe make sure and utilize some of those.
You're talking about the three other groups
Yes.
in DNA creativity.
Yeah, yeah. And so you could canvas them as well. Now, the help this would be to those groups is huge, because here they are, they're not even videotaping.
No.
Some of them are just, I don't know if they're keeping minutes or what they're doing. So you actually become somebody that goes in and says, all right, there's 3 parts to this project. You have to come up with an idea and do the idea. You have to document the collaboration, and you have to create lesson plans. Well, the lesson plans is a doddle. Most of them do that. Any teacher can come in and look at all the stuff and create some fun lesson plans. The project is what they're concentrating on, but they really don't know what it means to document the collaboration, except document, you know, in some sort of way with minutes. But how is that actually going to be made into data that's useful for anybody to use? And your group could actually make it useful and could give them a way that they could see a structure to put it in. I'm not expecting you to explain the polyaesthetic grid to the groups. I'm not thinking that
Well, they do need to think about the differences between science and art.
they definitely do.
They need to
Exactly.
think about the differences, because they're gonna be saying, oh, well, art and science, you know, they both have aesthetics, so.
Yeah.
Are the
we-
same.
Yeah, they're the same.
Yes,
That's exactly what you're gonna get.
Yes,
is
exactly.
They're gonna go,
But think of the questions that you could ask that would be, because if you go into an explanation of this, it's like the problem we all had, is Kaz is trying to tell us what it is, and instead of us discovering.
You have to experience
You have to experience it.
Right.
So a set of questions to the other teams that said things like, are you working on universal concepts? Are you working on direct expression? You know? So a set of questions, not that are maybe
Right.
related to this, but not, and maybe have a little explanation, but don't actually tell them that they're mapping anything, right? Just getting answers from them and examples from them. And boy, those examples could be terrific inspiration for the writers too. Am I trying to make it all too
The writers
holistic
our
here?
writers
Yes, yes.
or writers for them.
I think it could help everybody.
Yeah.
Well, what I'm hearing you say is that part of the intrinsic nature of the DNA group is that there are these three parts of the idea, documenting the collaboration and lesson plans.
Mm-hmm.
And that somehow we could canvass the other groups and focus on these three elements.
No, just focus on the middle one, which is the documentation of the collaboration. You're
Well-
not document what they're, not think about what they're doing, but just ask them questions about the collaboration, which would reveal similarities and differences between artists and science. All the other teams have lots, like the ocean team has 8 scientists and 8 artists on it. It's very
Wow.
evenly matched.
Now, they're gonna be here at the 30,
Mhm.
so that would be the time to canvas people.
Well, or to, if you decide that you want to do that, to announce that you're going to be doing that, and that you'll be sending them something to help them to, that you'll be sending them a list of questions, or,
But of course, they'll have their own, I mean, that's a team that's already,
Yeah, they're all working.
they're all working. I mean, they're not really gonna be involved in ours at all, probably.
no, they're not going to be involved in yours.
So why should we even bother talking to them about getting them to document it?
They have to document their collaboration. That's
Right.
part of their responsibility.
Presumably they have,
Pardon me?
have they,
I don't know.
you know?
I don't
You
know yet.
You know we have.
Yes. I know you
Would be
have
very public
documented,
about it.
but your documentation is 20 hours of 25 hours of random videotape. That doesn't really answer my question of what is the collaboration between art and science. All you've done is made a record of it, and it's like you've said, well, here's a record, draw your own conclusions. No, I don't want to draw my own conclusions. You're the ones that have got to draw the conclusions.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah, I
That's
see,
getting clear to me now.
I see at the very end of this thing, there being a mountain of work of going through these videos and trying to edit those down into an hour of something interesting.
Well, you might not have to do that, but you definitely, you know, what I did when I watched them is I sent you notes. I started to send you notes. I started to, as I was reading it, I said, this is something that needs to be noted. This, even if you just went back and look at the notes I made, you know, of the things that I saw, that kind of is, that's what you need to do, is not to, you don't have to edit the video down. You just need to mine the information. And some of it is, you know, just fun and irrelevant, it doesn't matter anymore, but some of it could be the start of one of the 6 skits. Definitely, definitely.
I think the
I
bird
think
picking
we need to talk
bones.
about what, you know, we really haven't decided what these skits are supposed to do. You know, I had an idea in my mind about what they were supposed to do, but that was really, I mean,
Well, let's start with that.
okay, well, to me, I mean, that's the reason I said that the skits need to come into the corners was to illuminate the differences between art and science. But you need to have the same topic. You know, the same topic done by artists and the same topic done by scientists. And they'll end up in the corners just naturally if you have scientists work on the topic and artists work on the same topic. You know, then the audience looks at this is the topic and this is how it's approached completely differently by scientists and by artists. And naturally, those are going to get mapped into the corners of the grid.
So basically we need 3 topics and then 2 teams.
If you want to get 3 topics, then you have, yes, and then you have,
I'm sorry, but the idea here is for the artists and the science to collaborate, not to make a team of artists that are doing something and a team of scientists that are doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Is it? Isn't that right? I don't think you want to do that. I don't think you want to separate it.
yeah, see, my idea was really to learn about art and science.
Learn about the differences.
Learn about the differences, because the differences is what tells you what,
Which is art and which is.
which is art, which is science, so that when you do collaborate, then you know what you're collaborating with.
So does anybody else see that as the fundamental good that could come out of this project? That people could actually see, these are the differences and this is the way we bridge the differences so that artists and scientists could work together? I mean, you know, is there a universal feeling in the room that artists and science working together is a good thing or not?
Oh, sure,
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
okay.
Yeah.
So if-
That might be the culminating question to ask after we've gone through the operation of deciding, you know, is this important, is basically you're saying.
I've been pondering these questions for the last 12 years. Literally, I mean, you know, I haven't been spending 8 hours a day on them, but they've been in the forefront of my mind for 12 years, trying to figure out these differences, because when people start talking about art and science, they start talking and there's just tons of confusion. Everybody's saying this is art, this is science, this is both art and science, and it's not. From my understanding, it's not. You know, it's all art, or it's all science, or it has a little bit of art in it, and it's mostly science, and they call it art. And to me, it's just it's very confusing.
Okay.
Trying to communicate about art and science. You know,
Okay, Kaz, so you've got 2 things you just said. One is, the last thing you said is, can we bring clarity?
That's the whole purpose.
Can we bring clarity to the relationship between artists and science?
That's what this is about.
Yeah, okay.
And,
That's,
and Jonathan, like you said, the other one really is answering the question, should artists and science collaborate? And I don't know if that's something that you pose, and halfway through you say yes, and then after halfway through you say, well, how can they do that? What's the, you know, we need clarity to be able to do it. But those are 2 fundamental goals that you've set, that you're going to try to make clear. And of course, it goes without saying that with the clarity, you're also going to try to be entertaining.
Yes.
Arthur would say that right now,
Sure.
wouldn't he, you know?
yes,
Uh-huh.
he'd have his kabuki girls.
Yes, right.
So,
I mean, if we go back to that as the fundamental thing that we're trying to do.
Fundamental thing that we're trying to do is bring clarity to the topic of art and science.
Okay.
And what is what is a collaboration of art and science. You gotta know what art is and what science is before you can really talk about the collaboration.
Now, that's a good point. And how do we bring that to the consciousness of the people?
That implies that some.
Because I don't think that, yeah, I think that there's got to be, whether we act this out, or display it, or monologue it, or narrate it, or whatever, that really has to be brought
Spotlight.
out,
Yeah.
spotlighted in the beginning.
That
That's
implies,
right.
that implies
That's
that
right.
some of the presentations that we'll give have to be what we consider to be pure science. I think.
Well, you just
I mean, I
said,
know you said that
You
we don't
just
want to
said
spotlight the differences.
Well-
what you just said is you needed to have a definition of what is art and what is science.
Right.
That's the, and so,
That's in the
so maybe at the very beginning,
Yeah, that's
you
right.
know,
That's
you-
right.
you
So
make
there's an
a di-
introduction that explains all
what
of
your
this stuff,
definition
what our
for this
definition-
evening is.
That's right.
John can get up there and do a lecture on astrobiology. We'll say that's science.
I could probably wheel out the Sparky discharge machine. I mean, we do it all the time.
Right.
In fact, Ruth West wants to come down and see it sometime.
Oh, good,
You
good.
know, that's pure science. I mean,
Was it a
it's-
Van de Graaff generator or something?
No, it's actually not that impressive, because unless you're very close to it, you can't even see the spark, which is maybe an inch long, you set it less bulb.
Pipes
Oh,
and.
Bring in a Tesla coil in or something.
Well, but then,
Make
But
everybody
see,
carry.
people are using that for art now.
let's see, now, actually, we use a Tesla coil, but we don't have, like, you know, a 6-foot spark of it. I mean, that's the thing, I mean, you know, this is, well, I think we ought to think of examples would be, I mean, I tend to think of examples for better idea than abstracts, actually. And, I run that way.
And I don't
can
have-
think- But I can see a scientific aspect almost any art, if only in the medium. For example, let's take microtonal music. I mean, there's psychoacoustics behind that. And if you can't hear it, you can't use it artistically. And, you know, then some of the
There's-
psychoacoustics,
It's the
some
art-
of the psychoacoustics
It's the art
goes
of pure
back
math,
into
you
Greece.
mean? If you
Well,
can't,
there's some pure math in it, there's
Yeah.
some physics, there's some psychoacoustics. And that's-
When you talk about psychoacoustics, you're talking about reverberations in the sound that
No,
you cannot
no.
see, or what are you talking about? That bring certain
No,
moods,
what sounds in tune, out of tune?
consonants and dissonance.
Consonants and dissonance, yeah. How do you generate, how do you construct a scale? Why do certain scales sound like scales and some like a random collection of notes? And artistry is to take that and to communicate some sort of a pattern that brings about some sort of at least intellectual, if not emotional response in the listener.
okay, so
Sounds like a great skit.
it
Yeah, that was
sounds to me,
fantastic.
yeah, or
Great
even so,
talent.
it's,
So,
or even more, it could be your beginning definition of art and science, that here's science that has no art in it at this point, and then here is how that is made into art.
but on the other hand, you know, astrobiology, which I mean, from the point of view, I do it as pure science, but it obviously inspires artwork, inspires a lot of people to go out into space, you know.
Okay,
Science
what
fiction,
about-
science fiction is an example, I think,
Uh-huh.
of an art that's inspired by science
Or the other way around,
and
Henry.
moved, and.
Oh,
well,
no, I
it's
think
not-
that's a
it's worked-
perfect example
worked
of
both
art
ways.
that inspires science.
It's worked both ways,
Yeah,
but the science actually came first.
The science generally does come from, I know that as an
not if
artist,
you read art and physics.
if,
It says that the art comes first.
well, you talk about Leonard Shlain's book,
Uh-huh.
Which book?
Art and physics,
you know, I don't know. Leonard,
Okay.
Leonard something.
Leonard Shlain. I had a conversation with
Well,
him.
for example, Edgar Wright.
With him?
Yes.
You did,
Okay.
and would you tear him apart?
No, I was disappointed, because when I read the book, I was going, man, this guy's brilliant, he knows so much stuff.
Uh-huh.
And then when I talked to him, I realized that the book was the apex of everything he knew. He didn't know anything further than what he presented. It was
Yeah.
like, as soon as I
It's
started
like a
saying,
research project, huh?
it was like, well, what about, well, I don't know anything about that.
You know, it's pointed in different
It
directions.
points in all these directions that are so cool, it was like, you know, so what happens when when you do this? And it was like, I didn't,
Well,
I just,
okay, let me give you an example. Schiaparelli looks at Mars, sees what he calls grooves on it.
who's this?
Schiaparelli, 19th century astronomer. Once they got decent, telescopes in the 19th century. Percival Lowell mistranslates it as canals. Develops this whole theory that there's life on Mars and everything. Edgar Rice Burroughs and other writers hear about this thing, and they write these huge fantasies. Barsoom ended up in the movie John Carter. And people like me read those, Carl Sagan read them, and you're inspired to go into astrobiology. But the science led it in that case, I think. Go back.
Even though it was misplaced science.
Frankenstein. There was a lot of work in reviving dead or near dead people. Cases of actually like a girl fell out the window, wasn't breathing, gave her a shock, heart started again, revived her. I mean, so there actually is some science even in Frankenstein and stuff.
Okay, so what are there examples of science, of art inspiring science? Are there examples? Because this is sounding very much like a one-way street. I'm feeling like I'm in a room with scientists here, saying it all comes from science.
No, I'm just saying, I'm just giving a couple of examples where I think that, well, the case of science fiction, I think it's gone both ways. I completely agree with you. I think that science came first, inspired writers, who then inspired another generation of scientists.
Oh, and now, so that's interesting. So it's sort of maybe cyclical.
Well, it was cyclical now. It's cyclical now.
Definitely a
Patricia,
two-way street.
I remember, in art school and being, my earlier career is art, pure art, not anything with science. And I remember following the same lines. Everybody's going, well, art always leads the way. It's us artists that come up with these creative ideas
Right.
and then the scientists go, oh, wow, the artists came up with these great ideas. Let's see if we can make them. And as I started studying science, I'm finding that's not really the case.
Well, maybe
There's a lot of scientists that are thinking wild, crazy stuff, smoking their dope and going for, creating all sorts of wild ideas, and it didn't have anything to do with art.
So wild ideas. Where do you put wild ideas on the chart of? Are they in the similar to ways that artists and science are similar?
They're
They
similar.
both have
They're both
wild
have wild
ideas.
You know what,
Okay.
I can add this. It's documented that Einstein said he came up with the idea of relativity from playing the violin.
Yeah.
That's where he got the idea. I don't know exactly what, but something about his own violin playing. He did play the violin.
Well, one
Inspired
possible,
him to think of
one example might be perspective. I think it was artists who worked it out, and geometers formalized it. I could be wrong on that. Perspective drawing, for example.
Perspective drawing.
Did you see that in the Renaissance?
maybe
Artist
the other way
invented.
around.
And I think
Michelangelo.
artists did it, and then
Da
geometers.
Vinci.
And
Da
then
Vinci.
you develop, then that stimulated geometers to develop projective geometry.
Aha. Oh,
At
that's
least I think
interesting.
that's the case.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't have, but I'm just, I'm having
We'll
just
have to read this in the
based things
book.
on my own,
Yeah.
my own experience.
Even though
Oh.
we're on tangents,
Hmm?
right? I think that something to remember is there isn't an absolute answer for what are the 6 best things. There aren't 6 best things.
6 best things, what do you mean?
Well, 6 best
For the-
ideas to
this.
have a discussion about.
Or-
It doesn't have to be the 6 best things. But could we talk for a minute about what are the characteristics of those things that we would like to see? Let's try to pin some of those down.
What I want to mention here real quick is if you notice in the polysthetic mapping, like on my website, there's really about 28 different dimensions.
Yeah.
I only picked out
The-
3 dimensions that separate art and science.
You mean this
All-
one? This-
Yeah, that's, all of that stuff
Mhm.
is stuff that's common with most art and science.
Okay.
That's,
But just as a sort of reminder for us, because we talked about a whole bunch of these things, what will make an idea here that qualifies as one that you might choose? we know, what-
It separates art and science,
Right.
that's an idea.
so it shows a strong
That's a
separation.
concept, but
Strong
that's not a right.
separation, yes,
A strong separation.
that's right.
You know what, Kat, before we go further though, I want to clarify something about this.
What's that?
The six,
The
Oh,
dimensions.
yeah, this,
Mhm.
uh-huh.
are you thinking in terms of the direct experience, purposelessness, and physical prowess being primarily art, and then these other three being primarily science? Is that,
Physical prowess, purposeless, and I'm really changing this purposeless aesthetics and utilitarian function because of our discussions. I want to clarify it. I think it's a little fuzzy. I think I want to change that to the aesthetics of utilitarian function and aesthetic not of utilitarian function, instead of using the word purposeless.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't like that word, purposeless.
And that way, it's much easier.
non-utilitarian?
Right.
Because purpose is
It's
some,
almost
purpose is
insulting,
some,
isn't it? Yeah,
well, purpose is something that's common to both.
yeah. Okay.
You know, although there is some art that's totally purposeless, but there is some mathematics that's, totally purposeless. I mean, a lot of pure mathematicians don't care about applications.
Right.
Hardy comes to mind.
Hardy, exactly. He came with his apology.
Yeah.
I'm apologizing because I can give a rat's ass about applications.
Uh-huh.
I'm sorry, but I'm a mathematician and I'm doing it purely for the beauty of math.
Yeah.
So that's not utilitarian function, right?
Right.
But it's still science,
Right,
Yeah.
is it?
that's a case of science,
No,
it's
yeah,
not
so-
utilitarian.
Okay.
I consider about
Yeah.
that as a science.
Unless we say,
That's-
unless we change the,
No, no,
unless we
no,
don't
no,
use
no.
the regular definition.
No, I consider
Yeah.
that as science.
That is,
Yes, that is true. That throws it over into a different quadrant, okay? And
Yes.
that's another similarity that mathematics has with fine art.
okay.
But then there's different things. Fine art, deals with a craft.
Right.
You're a painter and
So-
stuff like this. In mathematics, doesn't deal with a craft.
So
Yeah, so-
Joe,
That would push it over to the aesthetics of thinking.
Right.
I don't
Middle
think
power.
it's useful to say 3 of these are art and 3 of them are science.
No.
It's
Okay.
much more useful to look at this
Yeah.
Right, right.
list to,
But yes,
I just wanted to clarify.
but you
that
can say,
we were thinking that
That's
most
fine
science
art.
primarily falls on one side of those dimensions and most art falls on the other side.
does it? So,
if you look at fine art deals with non-utilitarian function, physical prowess, and direct experience.
Yeah.
Technology,
and mental ability,
no.
design, of course
Design,
it
no.
does.
No.
Of course it does. How can you not-
That is, well, let's, before we,
So then
we
makes
get
it,
into
it's
this.
toward the center in that point,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
yeah, it depends on what you're dealing with.
Yeah,
But you look at
Okay.
technology, look at a Porsche 911. There we have the aesthetics of utilitarian function, an expression requiring mental prowess, design, and the aesthetics of thinking.
Yeah.
but with a, what was the name of the car?
A Porsche 911.
You've really
Very-
got the physical ability, physical loveliness of it.
Uh-huh.
you
The
know.
the
That's a
physical
big part.
loveliness isn't on here. We're talking about, it's an expression requiring physical prowess. That means that you have to have, you have to be a craftsman, okay? Now, you can talk about the
John Coltrane would have the physical prowess because
Well,
he
does,
could play the
well,
saxophone,
the thing
but
is,
not many
now wait a
people
minute,
could.
this physical prowess, can it relate to a
building the parts.
non-human sort of thing? I mean, can a material
No,
thing
physical
have,
prowess is human.
all right.
That should be clarified. This
Well,
physical
the thing
prowess
is,
is human physical prowess.
A Porsche 911 has huge amount of physical prowess to tear 180 miles an hour.
Yeah.
That's
That's
physical
object.
prowess.
That's a
Yeah.
part of it,
That's
it's
the object.
aesthetics too, isn't it?
That's the object.
Yeah,
That's not,
but where does the design of the car come in then?
That's, and the expression requiring mental prowess, thinking.
So
that
it
can
has,
Design it.
so it does have both.
Yeah, it
What
has
does?
the design of the car.
The
Maserati.
the design is required physical, mental prowess, not physical prowess. The-
Making the car then has,
Yes, the guys making it, but they're not the ones that designed it.
okay, so
They're not the
you're,
ones that
all
created
right,
it. It's
so hold
not
on.
their
So
creative
can we
expression.
so can we capture that? Can we capture that? We're talking about, one person's creation. We're not talking about the
Or,
team
it could be
creation,
a team, but that entity, you know, is
because it's the,
the
I'm sure,
creation.
but I'm sure the physical, the craft of making the car then influences the design, and the design influences the craft, because, you know, the guys will come